If GM proved anything with the introduction of its all-new Colorado and Canyon midsize trucks last year, it's that a little competition can go a long way. As the winner of our 2015 midsize truck shootout, we praise the Colorado for breathing some much-needed life into the midsize segment. It offers a modernized midsize truck that, while not perfect, was a big improvement over what was currently available in the midsize market. What may have been most surprising is that while the Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon did sell well, Toyota's Tacoma, which was 10 years old at this point, actually had its best sales month ever in 2015. And that was before the 2016 model was even available in dealerships. And what this tells us is that the midsize market is alive and well and poised for more growth in the future. As we step forward into 2016 for the Off-Road.com midsize truck shootout, there's even more to be excited about. The segment leader Toyota has unveiled its all-new Tacoma this year, sporting a new exterior, a much-needed interior redesign, and a host of additional off-road features, as well as a new 3.5-liter Atkinson Cycle V6 to replace the outgoing 4-liter engine. The big news for GM this year is the introduction of the first diesel engine in a midsize truck for the US market, as both the Chevy Colorado and GMC Canyon will be offered with the optional 2.8-liter Duramax diesel engine. This year we'll be including the Canyon in our test, which is the same exact platform as the Colorado, but it is a little more handsomely equipped inside. The Nissan Frontier returns with no major changes for 2016, though rumors still exist of a future update. The tried and true Frontier may be due for some updates like last year's Tacoma was, but it is still a great all-around truck, jam-packed with value-minded features, along with the lowest price tag of the bunch. It was almost exactly a year ago that we were out here in the desert testing the 2015 midsize trucks. And here we are, a year later with the 2016s with what I'd say would be the usual suspects, but there's a lot new in the category this year. One of the main things is a new 2.8-liter Duramax diesel, the first in a midsize truck in the Colorado and Canyon. And Toyota, of course, has an all-new Tacoma this year, which is also sporting a new engine, a 3.5-liter Atkinson Cycle V6. Now, Scott, what did you think of this engine? This is the first time you've had the chance to spend a lot of time with it. What do you think?
As far as the Toyota goes, I think that if you're a Toyota fan and you've been a Toyota fan of the Tacoma platform for a long time, you're not going to be disappointed with this truck at all. It is new technology, but they've gone to great pains to make it feel very familiar. Overall, I'm impressed with the engine in the Toyota. I think that it delivers that same Tacoma goodness that the old one did, and gets a little bit better gas mileage to boot.
Yeah, and Toyota claimed 42 more horsepower on this engine, in spite of the fact that they went from the 4-liter down to the 3.5.
You know, Josh, now that you've spent a little bit more time with this 2.8-liter Duramax diesel, I'd like to know what you think about it.
Yeah, I really like the engine. It's interesting, 181 horsepower turbo diesel, but 369 pound-feet of torque. You think it's going to do really well in the low end and in the mid-range, and it does. And I frankly would have been shocked if it was not the best towing performer in the bunch. And it fit the bill in that regard. It definitely did great when we had our 3,000-pound plus trailer behind it. But overall, made it to the 6-speed transmission. I thought that it works really well. It's good, solid power. You don't quite have that immediate hit that you'll notice with the naturally aspirated V6s, but I really don't miss it. One of the biggest things I thought was great about it is, it's almost 29 miles to the gallon that I averaged, on the highway. Mm-hmm. All around fuel consumption, 28, 29 miles a gallon. For a midsize truck, now you're talking.
I was really impressed with the low-end performance of this truck. You got to remember that it's putting all of its peak torque out at 2,000 RPM. That's considerably lower than these other two, which are up in the 4,000 range. And I was impressed with a lack of turbo lag. I think that the turbo spools up really nicely. Again, like you said, this thing is the king of towing of these three vehicles. It actually feels like a much larger truck in terms of its power call and response, I think, than the other two do. The other two definitely fit into that mid-size league. This one feels to me like it punches a little bit above its weight.
Traditional mid-size truck drivers, it might take a little getting used to a turbo diesel. That's something, that power delivery is going to be a little unfamiliar to them. But overall, I feel like it's a great all-around engine package. I actually like it more than the naturally aspirated V6 that we tested last year on the Colorado.
And speaking of naturally aspirated V6s, the Nissan returns again with its 4-liter V6. No surprises under the hood here, and yet it's still a fun, great feeling, flexible engine.
Yeah, I feel like the power delivery is great. Torque last year this was the leader at 281 pound-feet of torque. You know, the Nissan is definitely the most dated truck in the class. The interior is desperately in need of some refreshing. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like it, I just like it the least. The exterior styling, you could say the same, but all things considered, the 4-liter engine still performs great. Great low-end hit on the bottom. Some of the most enjoyable power delivery, I think, through the entire power range of all the engines. Now, in terms of the handling of the vehicles, you know, the Toyota is the newest of the bunch. You know, this is as close to an all-new truck as you get for this class. What did you think of the overall handling, both on-road and off-road, for the Tacoma?
On the street, this thing exhibited excellent manners. I was really impressed with the way that it tracked, how it steered. It steered very light, yet very precise, and gave a really good road feedback to the driver.
And Toyota did make a notable change this year. They did just announce a TRD Pro for 2017, and that was kind of a little more in line with the TX Baja truck that we tested last year. 2-inch lift, a little more aggressive tires, a little more performance-oriented Bilstein coilovers up front. Now, this is the TRD Off-Road package, and the big news for Toyota's Tacoma this year is that they added an 8 3/4 rear differential in this truck. So it's a beefier rear diff compared to the 8-inch that's going to be found in the Sport package or your standard Tacomas.
They certainly hedged their bets a little with that slightly smaller engine, and that it's a steeper ring and pinion than last year's. I believe last year's was a 373. This one's now a 390. That's what helps to give this smaller engine the pep and zip that it has in the low to mid range. It definitely helps it out anyway. So, you know, yeah, a beefier diff, a slightly steeper ring and pinion keeps the Toyota right in the hunt as far as acceleration goes. The interesting thing is that the Canyon with the 2.8-liter turbo diesel adds about 300 pounds to the front end, and yet it's the same suspension package as last year. You don't really feel that extra weight up front. However, just like last year's, you do kind of have to baby this truck off-road a little bit. It's suspension and ground clearance challenged. I think the quality of the suspension is there, there's just not enough of it. But this truck is just not going to be able to maintain the same pace as the other two when you're going through the rough stuff.
And that's the case whether you remove the air dam or not. The air dam is a shovel, and all you're gonna do is dig dirt constantly. So you really have to baby it over the whoops, and it's unfortunate that it doesn't come off easier. I know, I've taken one off, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. The Nissan with its Bilstein shocks with the Pro 4X package, you know, I thought that actually handled great. I thought it was really confident off-road, and that's saying something for being such a dated truck.
Quite honestly, it gets my favorite marks of the three trucks in terms of suspension performance. The Bilsteins do an excellent job of soaking up the small ripples and the more choppy stuff. We went through a few roller sections, some whoops, some rocky terrain, and this truck to me has the most composed ride of the three off-road. On the street, it's a slightly different story. I would go back to giving the nod to either the GMC or the Toyota. Going back to off-road, I think that the Toyota is a little bit light in the rebound damping. Its shocks tend to be a little bit bouncy off the backside of bumps, and it feels like sometimes it's wanting to, you know, more or less, you know, lift the front wheels off the ground when you go through the bumps, you know, too quickly. However, you can really push the pace in the Toyota. The handling is there. It's a great feeling package. You know, there's I think the most ground clearance of all three of these vehicles, and it's a fun truck to drive fast off-road.
You know, Scott, we've talked about this. Any one of these trucks is a great truck, depending on what you're going to use it for. We've said that we could enjoy owning any of these. What were some things that stood out to you with the Frontier this year?
All these years later, it's still a really nice overall harmonious package. The suspension is excellent. The engine delivers, you know, plenty of torque, a great horsepower feel for a V6. The truck is very stable in all different sorts of terrain. It handles well. It does a lot of things really well. And also, I think, Josh, the thing that really impresses me about the Nissan is just the value proposition with this truck.
Right.
All of the extras that you do get, all of the things that Nissan thought of in this truck, such as like the bed-mounted rails and things like that, the luggage rack, you know. It's just a really nice truck.
The interior needs updating, as does the exterior styling, just a refresh even. And 15 to 18 miles to the gallon is roughly what you're going to expect out of this. It's the lone holdout with a 5-speed still, and yet it comes in with the Pro 4X package at about $35,000. So you're getting a lot of value in this truck at that price. And you know, depending on what you're going to use it for, you may not need all the bells and whistles, and it might be the perfect truck. Now, on the flip side, we have the new Canyon. Now, this is a loaded GMC, and it's got a diesel, which comes at about a $3,700 premium. There was a lot of things I loved about the truck. The diesel engine is everything I would hoped it would be. The GMC has the stitched interior on the dash. It's a little more plush, a little less plastic. It's one thing that some people do go toward the Canyon route versus going the Colorado.
It's just not something that you want to push the pace in. It's more than capable of crawling up and down the same things as these other two, as long as you don't catch that scoop of an air dam underneath. It handles well. It's actually a very solid handling vehicle. You know, just very sturdy feeling. Like I said before, it actually feels bigger than a mid-sized truck.
Last year, the Colorado won because we felt it was the best all-around truck. And it was a brand new truck in a market segment in desperate need of change. This year, there's a lot that I really like about the Canyon, and I want to like it more. Either of these other two trucks, you could run them out here and have some fun. You still need to take some level of caution, of course, but with the Canyon, I actually feel like you need to make some modifications if you're really going to go run it off-road. And that's disappointing considering it is an off-road package. And it also has, you know, the least playful suspension out here and the least ground clearance. So, you know, that's one thing I think that GMC and Chevy really need to look at for this platform is offering an off-road package that really brings something to the table when you get off the highway. Now, the Tacoma, on the other hand, there's a lot new with this truck. Some that we love and some that we don't love as much, but overall, I was really impressed with the new interior design of the truck. It was desperately needed. I thought they modernized it. It's relatively easy to use and simple. It looks modern without kind of being too much, I think. It still feels like a Tacoma. It still feels a little rugged, but a little more refined.
Over the long road runs that we did, and even spending the days out here off-road, it's a very comfortable truck to sit in for a long time. You know, you don't get fatigued. It just feels really good. The seats are really nicely, you know, they hug your back really nicely in your seat. And the steering wheel seems to be in the right position. The only minor gripes I have with the new interior tend to have to do with where some of the controls are placed.
While Toyota did a great job maintaining and, like I said, doubling down on the off-road capability of this truck, I just am disappointed that they went to a smaller engine and went from a 5-speed to a 6-speed. They had a 12% reduction in drag on this truck, which is the largest in Toyota's history, and yet they only managed to come up with about 3 miles per gallon more on the highway. We average right at about 20 miles per gallon in overall, which is right in range with the ratings for this truck. But when you compare that to the Canyon, where we got almost 29 miles to the gallon, it's just a huge difference.
For a gasoline engine in a truck, you know, 23 miles per gallon is really not that bad. So, you know, I'm okay with it. I think that when you put the whole package together, the new engine, the new chassis, the new interior, you know, all of the upgrades that they did to that truck, and kept the price, you know, right in the ballpark, $37,000. That's really impressive to me.
Maybe I'm being a little critical because Toyota has been on top in this segment for so long. I think a lot of people really expected a huge increase in fuel economy, but you know, you're right. They managed to go to a smaller engine, and it really doesn't feel that much difference, and they still did improve fuel economy. So it's a good point and a fair one.
And horsepower. You know, there's quite a bit more horsepower under the hood.
42 more horsepower, yeah.
And you know, you feel that when it gets into the upper RPM. I mean, the thing really moves out and you know, kind of, it gets going and it stays going. I really like that. That's very different than you know, a turbo diesel that tends to, you know, lunge really hard off the bottom and then flattens out kind of early. That truck to me has a very nice broad spread of power. And you know, if it's a 23 mile per gallon truck, so be it.
Well, and it's true, because the one thing with the turbo diesel is you're going to pay for that. We mentioned earlier it's about $3,700 additional. The Canyon prices out at $43,000, which is, you know, almost $6,000 more than the Tacoma. There's a lot of information to run through and really a lot of things to look at with these mid-size trucks. There's more in our story. We hope you head over to Off-Road.com and give it a look. But keep in mind, these tests, we cover so much ground because there's a truck out there for you. You just have to figure out which is the right one. So head over to Off-Road.com. Thanks for watching our mid-size truck shootout. See you next time.